we've got Colyn and Innellea, Obnoxious Desire. And this sound took me ages to figure out. I kind of tried to do it initially with wavetable, and I tried with analog, and then I figured layering them together kind of got me most of the way there. But again, it's about creating a nice interesting sound and then putting it into a space and distorting it and stuff. So here you can see it's two layers. First layer is analog, second layer is wavetable, and analog is kind of giving it this initial punch of the sound, and wavetable is giving this like mid-range character to it. So yeah, let's just duplicate analog and then we'll rebuild analog together. And let me just delete this overdrive because I'm not even using it. And I'm gonna group all of this processing and just turn it off. Okay, so this is the MIDI, and here you can see it's basically just eighth notes, and then we have these 32/32 notes over here that just kind of flam. Initially I thought maybe he was doing it with an LFO, which is still possible, but with analog it didn't sound right to use an LFO. So I got the best result just from using the envelopes and sequencing out the MIDI like this. Okay, so let me just reload analog. Alright, so if we have a look at the synth, we have two oscillators. They are both square waves. So let's just set them both to square waves. And at the moment that sounds like this. And we've got a little bit of a pitch attack, again, to like just give it a little bit of punch. So here, if you just click on these oscillators, you'll be able to set the pitch. So here it's around 50% with a time of about 5% on both of them. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just to create a little bit of punch. So I'm just going to set that to 50, that to 5, and the same thing on this one, 55. And then we want to bring down the second oscillator by 2.4 dB and pitch it up 1 octave. It's 2.4, so it's a little bit quieter and it's higher up. Okay, and then we also have a noise oscillator, and the noise is set to -5, and it goes through this signal chain. So it's going to filter 2, but filter 2 is actually turned off, but then it comes out of this second amplifier, so we can control the filter with the second amplifier. So just set that to -5 here, and then send it through filter 2, and we need to turn on amp 2, otherwise we won't hear the noise. And then the noise, we also have to make it brighter. I set it to 3.8. Oops, 3,800. And now you can hear that noise. And then we're going to begin shaping the sound to make it nice and short and plucky. So let's first have a look at this filter. And the filter is set down to 211 Hertz. And then we're modulating it up by 6.5. So let's just go down here and set the filter down to 225 and this envelope amount to 6.5. And I'm going to turn off the noise now because it's a bit distracting. We'll turn it back on when we begin to shape it. So now we can hear it's like nice and plucky with this filter, but now we need to change the shape of the filter. And we got the attack at 5 milliseconds, decay at 249, and sustain pretty much all the way down. So 5 and 249. 249. Okay, there we go, and the sustain all the way down. So now we got that nice punchy sound. And just while we're here, we might want to just set it to mono. So you can click on this tab here and go to mono. Then I think I set the drive here to a different model here, to Sim 3. So if I just change this to Sim 3, you'll hear it has more of a grit to it. Okay, and then we want to go up here to this amp envelope and shape the sound a bit more. So the decay and sustain, decay is at 835 and sustain's pretty much at 0. Here on amp envelope, 845. There we go, 0.845, and sustain at 0. And then release, I think I need to bring down the release. Yeah, the release is at 48 milliseconds because you can hear it has this like long tail, 0.048. And now that release is gone, so the sound's not like ringing out as much anymore. And now we can shape that noise. So we're going to turn on the noise, and because it's flowing through this signal chain, it's not going to be shaped by this amp envelope, and you're going to just have this really long noise. So we need to have a look at this envelope and see how it's been shaped. So the attack's at 58 milliseconds, so the sound's going to kind of like fade in a little bit after the attack of the oscillators happens. So it's going to get out of the way of those. And then decay's at 206 and sustain at 0. So if I just turn this on, you'll hear it's kind of just sustained noise. But we want to bring it up like 50 milliseconds. And then the decay down. Oops, I'm working with the wrong amp envelope here. Bring those back. So sustain down. Okay, so that sounds about right, I think. 265, 206, 206, sorry. 0.206. Okay, so that's it pretty much for the synth. Next we're going into the effects. So let me just turn this on, turn all of this stuff off. So this kind of drove me insane trying to figure out. I didn't get the space sounding exactly the same as the original, but I think it still sounds cool, so whatever. We've got a glue compressor, and that's doing the same thing as before. We've got a really short release and a longer attack to kind of bring out that transient. It's kind of like spanking the sound, and you can really notice it if you focus more on the body of the sound, so like the tail, and you can hear what it's doing to the tail with the noise. It's kind of like pushing it down and bring it back up, and it just gives it a bit more character and makes it sound nicer, I think. And then it's soft clipping it. Then we're going into a saturator with 4 dB of drive. It's left on analog clip. Nothing else has really changed, and then the output's just brought down by 4 dB. And let's just check, because I think maybe it's too loud. No, it's not, because that sounds pretty squashed by this. Oh, there we go. The problem here was that the amp envelope 2 is too loud, so the noise is too loud, and it's distorting with the saturator. So I think we need to bring it down to -33. There we go. So now the noise is a bit quieter. And then you don't hear that noise distorting with the oscillators as much. There we go. Okay, so now we go into this hybrid reverb, and I'm using this convolution reverb only. So we bring this blend down all the way to the left, then we're only hearing the convolution reverb. And the preset I chose here was under halls, digital long haul, but then I brought down the decay to 1.45 seconds. If I turn this up, you'll hear what it's doing. It's kind of giving it this cool, almost like delay / reverb. And then here in the EQ, I just EQ'd it like this, just to take out some of the sub. If I turn this off, it's just too much. So I took out some of the subs, some of the mids, and some of the highs. And then we're going into a delay here, and these are kind of displaced to the left and the right by 1.6%, so that it becomes a bit wider, because without that it sounds very mono. This pushes it out to the sides, and then the filter's just brought down to 805 Hz with the width of 1.62 and the dry weight at 24%. And then some reverb to put it into space. Okay, so yeah, next up we need to do this wavetable, and this is quite an easy one. This was just to kind of get that character of the mid-range. Make it sound a bit more interesting than just 2 square waves. So I'm going to duplicate this and wavetable here. Okay, so I've just basically went through a bunch of different wavetables here and found one that sounded as close as possible to the original sound. Now I found this sync additive waveform here, which sounds like this. So it's not a pretty sound, but we're going to shape it and make it sound a lot better. Okay, so the position of the waveform is down at the bottom here. That's fine. That's how it is originally. And we need to add a sub to it at the same octave, so at octave 0. So just turn that on, set it to octave 0. It's just basically adding a... Oh wait, let's just turn off that EQ. There we go, now you can hear the sub. Just gave it a bit more power, but I'm filtering it out afterwards, so maybe it didn't even make sense that I did that. But hey, I'm going to do that because it might affect the way this sound distorts through the filter, so it's better to just leave it on. And then we look at this frequency here of the filter. Well, first of all, we're setting this to a 24 dB filter, PRD mode, and then the drive all the way up. So 24 PRD, and then the drive all the way up. And then we want the frequency at 152 and resonance at 40. 52 and resonance at 40. And now we're only hearing the sub, so we need to modulate this filter. And what we're using for that is envelope 3 I'm using. So let's just make envelope 3 the same shape, 152, sustain at 50, and then the release at 9.32. And we won't hear that doing anything at the moment because we're not actually modulating anything. We need to click on frequency, go to the matrix here, start to increase that. Okay, and the amount of that is at 48. Okay, and then we also need to set up this amp envelope to 294 and minus infinity. 294, and then all the way down. And we can bring the release down to match mine, but it doesn't make a difference to the sound, so it doesn't really matter. And then the sound is a mono sound. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, nothing else is being modulated. It's a really simple sound, but it just gives it that nice mid-range. And then all I'm doing is just taking out the sub. And then if we solo these together, and we start getting this, the layers just work together really nicely. Then there's some processing over here on the group, because I've grouped them together, and it's an EQ8. Which actually makes quite a bit of a difference to the sound. So I'm taking out some of this around 1K, like minus 6 dB of it, or minus 7.8, and then the Q's at 0.71. And if we just A/B between that, it really cleans up that horrible like nasal characteristic of it. And then I'm boosting the sub just a little bit, and then taking out a tiny bit of the highs. And then sidechaining it to the kick drum. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and you learnt a lot, and thanks for watching. If you want to take a deeper dive into more sound design stuff or any other courses, we have a bunch linked below. So yeah, go and check them out. Alright, have a good day, and I'll see you at the next one.